What's up, y'all? Sparta here. I want to do my review of the LG G7 ThinQ now. Um, Sorry it took a while. I just have gotten very busy, and I just wanted to take a little bit more time with the phone to see exactly how I feel about it. Now, I would have done this, like, say, Monday or something like that, but I was moving stuff into my new apartment, so I couldn't necessarily do that at the same time. But without getting too far into that, let me just talk about the phone. So I guess what I'm going to start out with is the specs here. Let me get it into manual focus. And the first thing I want to get out of the way is the price. The price is $750. That's without tax. With tax in Minnesota anyway, that's $50. So that goes up to $800. I'm I didn't pay that up front outright. I didn't pay all of that outright. I am switching out my Note 8 for the G7. And when I do my versus video between the G7 and the Note 8, which will be after this, I will explain why. Because a lot of people seem to have a problem with me deciding that I want to use the G7 and not the Note 8 anymore. But, it's whatever. I don't necessarily have to explain that, but I'm going to do it anyway, I guess. So, specs. Dual 16 megapixel cameras on the back. One is f1.6, one is f1.7. One's obviously a wide angle, one is a regular angle camera. It does have portrait mode on here, something that's very good, but I will talk about the quality of that in a second. Fingerprint sensor on the back. You got your laser autofocus with your one LED flash. Your LG branding. I don't know why they decided to put the IMEI on the back, but it's whatever. The G7 branding. You got your volume up and down button with your Google Assistant button on the left. You have your power button on the right, which you could either choose to have your camera shortcut be mapped to pressing the volume down button twice or pressing the power button twice. I have it to where it's set to launch when I press the power button twice. Um, this is a six. Sorry, I'm getting messages and crap. This is a 6.2-inch IPS LCD display. Could go up to 1,000 nits. It does have a notch. I forget what. I think it's a 19:9 aspect ratio. it's a. I'm not necessarily sure of the resolution, but I could easily check that by just going into display, going into display 3120 by 1440. So it's kind of sort of close to 4K, but not really. um, what else? Has a headphone jack on the bottom. It has the Hi-Fi quad DAC that LG's been doing since the V20. It has a USB-C on the bottom, and it has a speaker on the bottom. Obviously, it has a notch. It has an 8 megapixel camera on the front. I'm not sure the aperture. Speaker on the right has a LED flash and your proximity sensor right there. That's what's flashing, blinking right there. And other than that, that's pretty much it. You have your your SIM slot on the top, which allows you to go for obviously your SIM and a micro SD card up to 2 terabytes, which isn't out yet, but it will. But I assume it shouldn't take long for that to happen. Has 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and I'll talk about how that's been faring for me in a minute. But now let's get into the review. Okay, so I'm gonna get what I don't like out of the way first, and I guess I'm not necessarily gonna say that I don't like it, but it's just gripes that I've noticed as I've been using the phone. Battery life isn't terrible. As I've said in previous videos, it's like comparable to like the Note 8. And that's more of a compliment to this phone than it is to the Note 8. where the Note 8 is a 3300 milliamp hour battery. This is a 3000 milliamp hour battery. And no, I don't have ultra bright wallpapers on my Note 8. So that's something. I do not just have a black wall, a black background on there, because that's just not how I roll. Like, I've done it before, I just don't necessarily like that. I like to theme my device, not just have a boring black background on my stuff. I'm sure they're typical video game like characters and shit like that, but it's something that I just prefer to do. That way you can truly test the display quality and not just, oh, it gets super black. So it should save battery life. That's been my problem when it comes to people talking about OLED, but I'm gonna get into that in my a bit of my Note 8 versus G7 video, as well as my V30 versus G7 video. But let me talk about this. Battery life as a 3000 milliamp hour battery. I've been able to get at least 4 hours, maybe like 4.5 some days, but it ultimately depends. But as you guys would know if you watch my content a lot, I don't use screen on time as my typical metric for battery life. I use standby time and how well it'll stream Bluetooth audio for how long from this device to obviously the Bluetooth device and how good it'll maintain battery. And I will say that same since I work overnights, I tend as soon as the store closes, I basically put on my headphones and I decide to play whatever podcast, which is typically is like 3 to 5 hours of podcasting basically. And it would from 12 to 5, it will go from maybe like it'll probably be at like 98 or some as soon as I get to work, and it'll be down to like 70 or like 75, whereas my Note 8 would be down to like 60 or something like that, and that was the phone I was using previously to listen to podcasts. That's why I'm using the Note 8. And it's just something that's very nice to have that extra battery life, or I don't necessarily have to put my phone directly on the charger before I go home or something, get ready to go home and stuff like that. So the 3000 milliamp hour battery isn't necessarily a terrible thing, but I do wish they indeed added, if they were going to decrease the battery life, I would say I would have preferred a 3200 milliamp hour battery. But you know, it's whatever. 3000 is good enough, honestly, for what I use this phone for. I will say, if you use it for like playing games or watching a shit ton of like YouTube videos and stuff like that, I wouldn't necessarily say that the phone is the best when it comes to endurance for that. But and I don't have I don't have grasp of like, oh, half an hour of playing YouTube will get this amount of battery percentage down and stuff like that. I don't necessarily have those kind of metrics, but I will say I do notice that this phone dies quicker compared to like my V30. And obviously the V30 has a bigger battery, but bigger battery doesn't always mean better battery life. So it's just something that I just wanted to get out the way. Battery life is the biggest thing that I don't like about this phone. Like a minor gripe is the notch. Like the notch honestly doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people, but I will just say that when it comes to this phone, in renders and stuff like that, and in video, the notch looks way worse than it does when you actually look at the phone in real life. And honestly, if it's that big of a problem to you, you could just hide it. Hide it if you don't like it. And look at that, it doesn't even look, unless you obviously put it in light, it virtually doesn't even look like it's there. So if you don't like it, you can hide it. But I keep it out because I just really don't care. It doesn't it doesn't like detract from watching videos or playing games or anything like that. So that's the main thing I was worried about, because the iPhone 10 does that. You could like literally into the you can zoom on the display of the iPhone to make it like literally fit the corners that are past the notch too, and that doesn't look right to me. So I'm glad that LG at least decided to keep it so where it's still 18 by 9 that it stays at when you zoom in on YouTube videos and stuff like that. But I'll just show you guys real quick. I don't know why I take this roundabout way to get to my videos, but so I'll just turn the display up. So as you guys can see, the borders are right here. Obviously, I zoom in, and you can't zoom in any farther than the notch. So it's not anything that bothers me in particular, but it's just something that I wanted to show you guys, just in case it's a deal breaker for you guys. I will say that the notch isn't necessarily a deal breaker for me anymore. If the V40 has it, oh well. But at least when it does, if it does have it, it will have an OLED display, most likely. So you won't necessarily see the backlight. You won't see the backlight when you decide to hide the notch. So it's something that doesn't bother me at all. Um, what else? I'm not gonna gripe about the design anymore. Glass on glass phones are in right now, so it's something that I'm not necessarily gonna say is terrible. I don't prefer it. That's all I'm really gonna say. I would have much rather preferred if they went with a metal design, but since everybody wants wireless charging, everybody wants a good looking phone, but not necessarily a sturdy phone. What can you do? You got LG has to sell phones, but I will say when this comes to this color, I like this color a lot. This raspberry rose color. It's not too pink, but it's also not too red. It turns different colors in certain lighting conditions, which is very cool looking. And honestly, I really had no issue using this phone without a case for the past 2 weeks that I've used it. I will get a case though, because I need to do that. As much as I hate cases, I'm gonna just have to do that. And I don't like skins, so I'm just gonna have to get a case. All right, so let me get into the stuff that I really do enjoy about this phone. Um, the overall, like, using it in general, I like a lot. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't like about certain phones when it comes to just using them. But when it comes to every single LG phone I've used, and this isn't me fanboying or anything like that, it's just something I've noticed. Going from a Sony phone to a Samsung phone to an LG phone to all these different kinds of phones and like even like the Nintendo Switch and stuff like that. There's just a lot of like minor things that LG tightens up, but that I just prefer over certain user interfaces when it comes to Android and stuff like that. Like knock on is something that's very nice. Obviously there's a delay there because I have knock code on and I have two different like taps. I have two taps that are in the same area, so it just does that. Knock on and knock off is something I really like a lot. It's just something that they've had since the G2 that they've never taken away, and I enjoy that quite a bit. Um, the power button on the right side is something that I do like. It was something I was kind of like iffy on because every single LG phone since the G2 has had a power button on the back, and every single LG phone since the V10 has had a fingerprint power button combo on the back. So it's just something that I do indeed miss, but it's not something that makes me be like, oh, this is a flaw. It doesn't make me say, oh, this phone doesn't feel unique or anything like that. I don't necessarily feel that. This phone feels unique enough without having to do a billion different things that every other phone. You can't necessarily do a billion different things from another phone because every single phone basically does the same thing now. But I'm going to talk about the unique stuff that this phone does do in the audio section of this review. Now, I've talked about audio in my previous video when it comes to the LG G7, and this is downright the best phone you can get when it comes to headphone audio. When it comes to like, speaker audio, I won't say it's the best, but it's up there with the best. Because what would make it like the best, or at least top five, is if it had a front facing stereo speaker up here too, along with the boombox speaker. That's just something that I wish they did do, but who knows? They may do that next time around when it comes to the V40 or even the G8 or whatever they decide to do. So I will go into a video here. Has when it comes to their headphone jacks, what they can do and how loud they are, how detailed they are. But other than that, that's all I can really tell you guys. And to be honest, like I'm not gonna go too deep into this, but I will say that the G7, the boombox speaker, is something that's very nice. You feel the phone rumbling and vibrating in your hand when you're listening to stuff, and it just feels very immersive in a lot of ways. And it doesn't feel there. Oh, what the fuck was that? There isn't no like there isn't anything that makes it feel like volume is rich, it's nice and loud, it's clear. Nothing feels like it's like tinny. There's no tinny sound to anything like that. Like I can't even use my Note 8 with its speaker anymore because every time I use it, I just feel like it just isn't up to par for me. So I just go back to the G7 or even the V30. The V30 is plenty loud, but it would definitely benefit to having the boombox speaker. Camera. The cameras on this phone are great. A lot of people are still trying to say that, oh, it doesn't have a billion different modes. It isn't as saturated as Samsung and stuff like that. To people that say that, I don't understand why they want every single photo to be oversaturated. But I took this with the AI camera, and as you guys can see, the sky on here, like it, colors are very well represented. That's my turtle. That's not like a turd on the ground or anything like that. But I also took this with the AI camera as well. Let me as you guys can see, there's a fair amount of detail in the fur on the cat here. Um, there's a good amount of detail in there as well. It's very vibrant, very bright. The blue in the sky is very blue. It's very nice looking. What's another? And here's some portrait mode shots. This is in downtown St. Paul. They got like a bunch of peanut statues in downtown St. Paul. So as you guys can see, I'm gonna put it on auto so it can be a little bit better. But as you guys can see, the background is blurred out very nicely. There's very little fringing and stuff like that. Nothing looks terrible. That's a portrait shot of me, and it looks very nice, I guess. No fringing again on there. I'm gonna go here, and this is a shot I like a lot. It's very like I said, there's very little fringing, and the background blur is nice. It doesn't look super creamy. It doesn't look super software like a lot of like portrait mode shots look like. And here's a night shot. I'll turn the display up here. Here's a night shot. Now, as you guys can probably not see as well, there's very little noise and stuff like that. The super brightness you guys see when it comes to like, I'm gonna have to turn the ISO down here. But as you guys can see, the red is very red. There's just a lot of stuff that looks nice when it comes to this picture here as well. And you won't be disappointed if you oh god, I'm sorry. You won't be disappointed if you go with the G7 if you want a very good camera. The 8 megapixel camera on the front is a very, I keep missing it, is a very nice improvement compared to like the 5 megapixel cameras they've been doing for the past like few years. There's just a lot of stuff that this phone does with this camera that's very nice. No 4K 60 yet. I did hear that there's going to be an update to bring out 4K 60 on the G7, and I will test that and I will make a video on it. I will do a camera comparison between this and the V30 soon. I just have to obviously do it on a day off because I don't have enough time in my day to just go out and just shoot a whole bunch of shots and stuff like that. um, yeah, there's a lot of things about this phone that's very nice, but I do want to talk about the price and if it's worth it. Um, so $800. It ultimately depends on where you are from and if you get it unlocked or not. But since I'm from Minnesota and tax is only $50, it's up to $800. And a lot of people live in a lot of reviewers. I don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to like they think that $800 is terrible for a flagship phone for whatever reason, just because shit like the OnePlus 6 is out and stuff like that. And then they want to quote the S9 and S9 Plus and stuff like that, and act like, oh, well, those are only like 750. It's slightly cheaper than that too, so you could just get that. But that's also been out for months now. It's been out practically since the beginning of the year, so of course prices dropped for those phones. And do I necessarily agree with the price? I mean, the G6 was 700, I think, when I got it, and this is basically $100 price jump. I don't necessarily like it doesn't bother me at all, honestly. There's a lot of things about this phone that I like. I like a lot. But I will be looking forward to the V40 having literally every feature that this phone has, especially in the audio department and more. So it's not something that bothers me at all, but it's just something I wanted to bring up. Because it just bothers me when people are like, oh, but the price though, the price. But the Note 8 was damn near $1,000, probably $1,000 for a lot of people, and I don't think that was worth its money. Like, and that's not me slagging the Note 8. I love the Note 8, but I don't think it was worth. I don't think it was $930 plus $50 tax worth of a phone. It just wasn't. Like, there's a lot of improvements to that phone, but it could add a bigger battery, could add a whole bunch of stuff that obviously they were scared to do because of the Note 7, but I'm not going to get into that. So, what do I want LG to do next when it comes to this phone? When it comes to the G8 or whatever, obviously a bigger battery, a front-facing speaker as well to pair with this boombox speaker and this bottom-firing speaker. A faster fingerprint sensor. I'm not saying that the fingerprint sensor is necessarily slow. It's just the feedback from the phone itself is a bit slow. It's not necessarily the fingerprint sensor itself because it reads it fast. Like I feel it register very quick, but it just needs a bit of tightening up, and that can be done in software. I don't mind that there's no app drawer. You can obviously change it to where you can get an app drawer in the launcher itself, so that's nothing that's necessarily bad in my opinion. I do indeed want, and I will keep saying this, I do want there to be a software like headphone splitting kind of